On October 1st, 2025, the world learned that Jane Goodall was gone. The woman who half a century ago proved that chimpanzees could use tools and were capable of complex emotions died in California during another speaking engagement. She was 91 years old. The Jane Goodall Institute announced natural causes, and those two words encompassed an entire lifetime, so long and full that it seemed it would never end. Until her last day, Goodall traveled, gave lectures, inspired people not to lose hope. She was on a speaking tour across the United States when her heart stopped. It seems fitting for her to leave not in the quiet of an office, but in motion, among people she was trying to reach with her message. She was born in London in 1934, in a family where no one was involved in science. Her father was an engineer, her mother a writer. Jane grew up an ordinary girl who loved animals more than dolls and dreamed of adventures. She devoured books about Dr. Dolittle and Tarzan, and one day realized she wanted to be in Africa, living among wild animals and writing about it. When she shared her dream, most adults laughed. A girl from post-war London, without money, without connections, without education, and suddenly heading to the jungle. It seemed absurd, but her mother Margaret didn't laugh. She told her daughter, "If you really want this, you'll have to work very hard, take advantage of every opportunity, and never give up." Jane remembered those words for the rest of her life. In the late 50s, when she was in her early 20s, she finally made it to Africa, first as a secretary, then as an assistant to paleoanthropologist Louis Leakey. Leakey noticed something special in her, not academic training, but patience, observational skills, and a willingness to live in wild conditions. He sent her to Tanzania, to the Gombe Stream Reserve, to study chimpanzees. No one thought then that this research would revolutionize science. Jane was 26 years old. She had no university degree, only a notebook, binoculars, and incredible stubbornness. The first months, the chimpanzees ran away from her, hid in the thickets. She sat on the hills, watched from a distance, memorized, recorded. Gradually, they got used to her presence, stopped being afraid. And then she saw something that changed everything. One day she noticed a chimpanzee named David Graybeard, who was poking a grass stem into a termite mound, pulling it out and licking off the insects. He was using a tool. Until that moment, it was believed that only humans were capable of creating and using tools. This was the main distinction of our species. Jane sent a telegram to Leakey, and he responded with a phrase that became famous. "Now we must either redefine man or accept chimpanzees as human." This discovery reverberated around the world. A young Englishwoman without a degree had challenged the foundations of anthropology. She was criticized for giving animals names instead of numbers, for attributing emotions and personalities to them. But she continued to observe, document, prove. Chimpanzees grieved, rejoiced, embraced, fought, cared for each other. They were much closer to humans than anyone could have imagined. Despite lacking higher education, Cambridge University accepted her into graduate school, an almost unprecedented case. She became only the 8th person in Cambridge's history allowed to pursue a doctorate without first completing undergraduate studies. Her dissertation was based on years of observations in Gombe, and no one could dispute the value of this material. In the 60s, her name became known worldwide. Documentary films came out, articles in National Geographic, books. But fame didn't change her. Jane continued to live modestly, spending most of her time in the jungle, away from cameras and conferences. She married cinematographer Hugo van Lawick, who filmed her work in Gombe. They had a son, Hugo, whom everyone called Grub. The family lived in Africa, among chimpanzees and other animals, in a world that seemed perfect, but ideals rarely last forever. The marriage to Van Lawick fell apart in the early 70s. Both worked intensely, both were absorbed in their projects, and at some point their paths diverged. Jane married a second time to Bryceson, director of Tanzania's national parks. He shared her views, supported her mission, and it seemed that now everything would be different. But in 1980, Derek died of cancer. He was 57. Jane was left alone with a teenage son and work that demanded all her strength. She could have broken down, retreated into the shadows, withdrawn. But she did the opposite, became even more active. She realized that observing chimpanzees wasn't enough. Their habitat needed protection, poaching needed to be fought, people needed education. She founded the institute bearing her name, launched educational programs, began speaking around the world. The last decades of her life resembled an endless tour. 300 days a year she spent traveling, speaking to students, politicians, activists, ordinary people. She talked about how the world was going through dark times, but that wasn't a reason to give up. She repeated that you can't solve all problems at once, but you can start small, with your city, your street, your family. Many came to her with despair in their eyes, saying they felt helpless in the face of global catastrophes. And she answered them with her mother's words. Work hard, don't give up, use every opportunity. It sounded simple, almost naive, but from her lips, these words carried weight. She had lived a long life and seen the world change for worse and for better, and she knew that hope wasn't an abstraction, but a choice you make every day. In May 2025, one day before her 91st birthday, she gave an interview to the Call Her Daddy podcast. It was an unexpected choice of platform. The show was known for frank conversations about personal life, not ecology. But Jane agreed because she wanted to reach the younger generation. She said she had always felt like a person with a mission, that her mother taught her not to be afraid to dream, and that she wished her mother could hear this. Margaret had died in 2000 at the age of 94, and Jane often said she owed everything she achieved to her. She joked that Tarzan married the wrong Jane, and that her own life turned out no less adventurous than childhood books. This was one of her last interviews, and it was surprisingly warm, human, nothing like a lecture from a legend. Jane left behind her son Grub, now 58, and 3 grandchildren, Angel, Merlin, and Nick. Grub grew up in Africa, among chimpanzees and researchers, and his childhood was far from ordinary. But he didn't become a scientist, chose his own path, and Jane never pressured him. Her granddaughter Angel once told journalists that her grandmother never forced them to follow in her footsteps, but always repeated, "Never lose hope if you really want to do something. Go ahead and do it." This was her main message. Not great discoveries, not doctoral degrees, not fame, but a simple, almost childlike belief that every person is capable of changing the world around them, if only they don't give up. When news of her death spread around the world, thousands of people wrote that they had lost not just a scientist, but someone who gave them strength to carry on. She wasn't a saint, didn't try to appear perfect. She made mistakes, experienced defeats, lost loved ones, got tired, but she got up and kept going. The Jane Goodall Institute called her a tireless advocate for nature, and that's true. But she defended more than just chimpanzees and forests. She defended the very idea that the world can be made better, that humans can be kinder, wiser, more attentive. Her life is a story about how a little girl's dream turned into a global movement, how stubbornness and love for animals changed science, how one woman proved it's never too late and never too early to start doing what you believe is right. Jane Goodall died on October 1st, 2025, but her words will remain with those who heard them. She taught that despair is a luxury we cannot afford, that every day is an opportunity to do at least something, that humans and animals are more closely connected than we think, And that hope isn't waiting for a miracle, but work that needs to be done, even when everything seems meaningless. She lived 91 years, and until her last day never stopped believing in humanity. Perhaps that's the main lesson of her life. Don't give up even when the whole world says it's pointless. Her mother was right. If you really want something, you need to work hard, use every opportunity, and never give up. And then maybe you'll find your way. Jane found hers and showed it to millions of others.